Off the top at 5, remembering Lincoln Diaz-Balart, the former South Florida congressman and immigrant advocate losing his battle with cancer at 70 years old. Good evening, I'm Lauren Pastrana.
And I'm Elliot Rodriguez. Diaz-Balart was the legislative mastermind responsible for enshrining the Cuban embargo into law instead of executive action. It was only part of his long struggle for democracy on the island, a struggle his family knows all too well. Lincoln Diaz-Balart represented South Florida in Congress for 18 years. Before that, he served in the Florida legislature. Known as a hardline opponent of socialist regimes, especially in his native Cuba, he led efforts in Congress to tighten the U.S. embargo against the island.
Before any U.S. president can lift the embargo, all political prisoners must be freed. All political parties, labor unions, and the press must be legalized. Diaz-Balart led the effort to move SOUTHCOM, the U.S. military's Southern Command headquarters, from Panama to South Florida. He also authored the Nicaraguan Adjustment and Central American Relief Act. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz called him a freedom fighter.
The privilege that I had to learn from him, to receive guidance and advice from him, and to develop such a rich and deep relationship and friendship that it essentially erased party lines when it came to the work that he and his brother Mario and I did together.
Politics was in Diaz-Balart's blood. His father, Rafael, was a politician in Cuba, an outspoken opponent of Fidel Castro. His brother, Mario, serves in Congress and sent out a statement from the Diaz-Balart family. Lincoln's profound love for the United States, it says, and his relentless commitment to the cause of a free Cuba guided him throughout his life and his 24 years in elected public service, including 18 years in the U.S. House of Representatives. Former Miami Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, who worked closely with Lincoln Diaz-Balart in Washington and Tallahassee, said the oppressed people of Cuba had no greater advocate for their freedom than Lincoln. He was the intellectual giant among us. On a personal level, I will miss our conversations and the wise counsel he always provided to me. The second Cuban-American to serve in Congress, following in the footsteps of Ros-Lehtinen, Diaz-Balart served as a mentor to a new generation of political leadership.
What I will miss most about him is his sense of humor. He was actually a really funny guy, and also just being a great human being. He was always giving, a very generous person with a great sense of humor, loved life, and also was a great husband, father, and brother.
Well, Lincoln Diaz-Balart was a towering figure in the Cuban exile community in South Florida, and many of them are mourning his loss today.
CBS News Miami's Maribel Rodriguez picks up our team coverage from Little Havana with more. Maribel?
Lauren, Elliott, I'm sure that everyone can agree, those who knew Lincoln Diaz-Balart, that he had a larger-than-life personality, whether he was at a restaurant or at an event. He made his presence known, even here at La Ventanita, here at Versailles, where he visited often. And today, just after his passing, he is being remembered not only as a politician, but also the man and the legacy he leaves behind.
Lincoln, he was always a person that you can say he knew about solidarity. He was decent, firm. I think he was about one of the best public servants we've ever had in this community.
That's how Lincoln Diaz-Balart is being remembered by those who knew him best.
La noticia del fallecimiento de Lincoln Diaz-Balart.
Holding back her tears, Ninosca Perez Castellón began her daily radio show sharing the news of the former congressman's passing. To her, he was much more than a politician. He was a dear friend.
I would call Christina, his wife, and I said, to ask about how he was doing, and he would always say next to her, tell her I'm still in the ring. So I said, he was like my champ. He was a good friend.
The former congressman touched many lives and helped thousands of Cuban exiles throughout his career.
As a young state representative in the Florida legislature, my husband, which was not my husband then, but he was a political prisoner, was serving 27 years when nobody was listening, and he dedicated his victory to him.
His personality was larger than life, and he loved the South Florida community.
Very sad. It's a very hard day for the Cuban exile community he did a lot for.
Sí, somos cubanos y sentimos mucho.
You feel his loss very much.
Una pérdida irreparable.
It's an irreplaceable loss.
Here at Versailles, a place he often visited, Diaz-Balart is being remembered among many things, including his generosity.
For example, when the Lincoln is coming to Versailles, he's telling to the people, all of the coffee from me and pay for that. And they give a good invitation to all of the people over here.
And not only would he share his cafecito, we're also told he was a very good tipper. Now, coming up at 6, we'll share how he not only changed the lives of Cuban-Americans here. We're live in Little Havana. Maribel Rodriguez at CBS News, Miami.
Maribel, thank you. So many people have such special memories of him, and one of the things he's known for is also his mentorship.
Yeah, and you hear that from both sides of the aisle, right? Both Republicans and Democrats saying that Diaz-Balart was the type of person who was willing to work together to cross the aisle, something we're not seeing too much these days, because you'd use more of it, that's for sure. The Diaz-Balart family tells us a public memorial mass will be held in the near future. Lincoln Diaz-Balart is survived by his wife, 1 son, a daughter-in-law, 2 grandsons, and 3 brothers. His oldest son died in 2013.